The Indians call it the River of No Return. From here on, you'll find out why.
Alright guys, welcome back to Real Classic Film Reviews and welcome back to the movie room. It's great to be filming videos in here once again after it's had a bit of a lick of paint, and one of the first films I want to talk about in this new review series is a little known western called River of No Return. Now in the early 50s, acclaimed director Otto Preminger teamed up with Marilyn Monroe and Robert Mitchum to make this river rapid western. Now this is a film the director wasn't initially interested in making, a film that Monroe cited as her worst movie experience. And a movie where Robert Mitchum didn't really get along with anyone, really. Now, this period of the 1950s was so saturated with westerns, with many remembered far more fondly than River of No Return, but the talent involved here and some of the odd choices the film makes, its stunning natural scenery and a surprisingly grounded Marilyn Monroe performance definitely make a case for discovery or even reappraisal. Let's take a look. So River of No Return sees farmer Matt Calder, played by Robert Mitchum, just returning from serving a prison sentence and coming home and reuniting with his 10-year-old son Mark, played by Tommy Rettig. They reunite at a sprawling campsite that's emerged due to the latest gold rush. So a lady named Kay, played by Marilyn Monroe, is providing the sultry singing entertainment in the saloon tent here. But it's not long before she's convinced by the conniving Harry Weston, a great Rory Calhoun, to join him on a dangerous raft journey to Council City, where Harry wants to file a gold claim he won in a poker game, apparently.
What could happen?
Who knows? Who cares? A man could get mad and say I did something.
Did you?
I told you, honey, I got lucky, that's all. Just lucky.
Now, soon into the pair's raft journey, they float by Matt's cabin, and it's not long before Harry's evil tendencies start to take over.
It isn't there, Calder. Go on outside. Go on, you got a kid out there.
Now, Calhoun steals Matt's horse and rifle and knocks him out and just rides away. This leaves Matt and son, along with the sympathetic Kay, to fend for themselves as bloodthirsty Indians arrive on the scene. So taken to the raft, the trio make their escape, with Matt hell-bent on revenge against Harry, Kay hoping to prevent further violence, and young Mark about to learn some seat-of-your-pants life lessons as the waters and emotions begin to swell.
Well, what's a man like Weston?
How would you know? How would you know anything about him? What he wanted all of his life or what he's been? You only know the one thing he did to you. The one crazy thing. Because he was desperate.
About a hunk of gold.
About his life. You can't even see the difference.
Now, River of No Return is one of Marilyn Monroe's less celebrated but perhaps most down-to-earth roles. Despite an apparently strained relationship with director Otto Preminger, Monroe delivers a performance here that demands a bit more than just being squeezed into teeny tiny outfits, and kind of demands that she be a bit more physical and rugged. She of course gets a little musical number and manages to look astonishing throughout.
Old Mr. Moon makes hearts everywhere go bump, bump, with the magic of June.
All right, coming good.
Now, I think Robert Mitchum, having a torrid time by all accounts, realises no one's going to be looking at him while Monroe's around, and decides to almost sleepwalk through the movie. He's the flawed hero with a past that we slowly learn about as the film progresses, and you do get a feeling early on that his jail time probably wasn't justified, and so it's odd and quite uncomfortable that we have a near sexual assault between him and Monroe sprung upon us, made all the more baffling by the fact it's so easily forgotten afterwards. Now, River of No Return features many of the textbook Western trademarks, though the shift in locale from the usual dusty southwest to the unforgiving and sparsely populated northwest does make a nice change here. Now, a great plus point, of course, of relocating a Western a few hundred miles north is in the scenery department. Here there's some great sweeping panoramic photography in the film, with Preminger filming in CinemaScope, most probably realising his locations are much more interesting than his script. Working with cinematographer Joseph Lachelle, Preminger spends as much time as he can filling the screen with nature, probably to reduce his characters to specks on a raft and thus concealing the faces of some of the stunt doubles used. Close-ups unfortunately hampered here by some poorly aged rear projection and a few buckets of water.
Hit the rope!
So the film really is a straight-up revenge / chase movie with a love triangle sprinkled in. The raft element being the selling point here. There's no real gunfights, there's no evil cattle baron or railroad tycoons, but we do get hostile Native American tribesmen, here of course reduced to mindlessly vicious villains. Now there is an interesting subplot introduced around Mitchum's son, played by Tommy Rettig, as we mentioned. He becomes central to the story as he learns of his father's past and eventually becomes a key player in the film's quite shocking finale. Now elsewhere, Rory Calhoun's villain is a slimy piece of work who of course will get his comeuppance. He's not on screen enough, to be honest, which is a shame because his performance is one of the better ones in the movie. Calhoun had worked with Monroe in How to Marry a Millionaire and was no stranger to the Western genre, of course. This was one of 5 Westerns he made in 1954 alone.
All right, Kay, I'll talk to him.
What's that for?
In case he's hard of hearing.
Now Monroe, of course, still had her huge hits ahead of her. Mitchum was only about a year away from his career-defining role in Night of the Hunter. Otto Preminger, the director who didn't even stick around for the film's editing, famously called Marilyn Monroe a vacuum with nipples. He was coasting here and had cinematic masterwork Anatomy of a Murder ahead of him. So yeah, the film is perhaps a curious entry on the CVs of most concerned. A template for films like The River Wild and maybe even Deliverance, with our heroes encountering everything from whitewater rapids to wild animals and crazy gold prospectors. Incidentally, either in 54 or 55, a film named Smoke Signal was released that saw Dana Andrews and co. fleeing Indians along a dangerous stretch of river as well. Now, I haven't seen that film, but it sounds like it's missing a key component that this film has, and that's Marilyn Monroe, of course. Not renowned for her adventure films, of which I think this is the singular entry. And admittedly, it's not the greatest Western or the greatest moment from anyone involved, but that shouldn't allow it to slip into complete obscurity. Go check it out.